Because you've heard about gender sensitivity, I will start with the lady. And I will start with the lady in the middle there, Mrs. Funke Adekoya, SAN.
Thank you. Your Excellency, my question relates to Rwanda's record on poverty alleviation. The two leading economies in the world today are America and China. America is based on private sector capitalism. It has a very high poverty gap between the rich and the poor. China is the second country acclaimed by 2020, we're told, to even overtake America in terms of its economy. It's based on state-run capitalism, so state-led capitalism. It also has a very high poverty gap between its rich and its poor. In light of what you have told us this evening, and the efforts Rwanda has made to close that gap in terms of its rich and its poor, would Your Excellency care to label its economic philosophies? And would Your Excellency wish to share with us his ideas as to how these economic philosophies can be translated out of the agricultural sector into international trade and commerce, business development, knowledge sharing, and other aspects of international trade? Thank you, sir.
Thank you. I'll start from what we have in place that guides us something we call Vision 2020. This is a vision we put in place in the year 2000. And it was informing us and projecting how we move into the future and where we should be in the year 2020. And basically this was building as a priority on investing in our people. Our people are the number one asset. The rest will follow that. That's why we have in our national budgets, the biggest chunks will go to education and health, and then other important things as well. But these two stand out because we're investing in our people, in the health of our people, in the education of our people. This is the first thing. And then we invest in infrastructure, we invest in developing the private sector capacities, and so because we want ultimately the private sector to be the driver of our economy, not the government. The government is just a facilitator. We want to make sure we create a conducive policy framework and other aspects of that environment that will allow for the private sector to develop as very key. So the government is just an enabler for that to happen. So the philosophy, if you will, I'm sure you're already detecting what I'm talking about, what the philosophy we are leading to is. Now, whether China does this or America does that, that's okay. They can go on with their thing as they want, because it depends on also many things. But in our case, depending on where we have started from, we could not say, in any case it wouldn't make much sense. We could not say, we are going to leave everything to the private sector. Private sector will take care of itself and take care of everybody else, and we move on. Government has no role to play. Or we could not say, oh, the government will do everything and the private sector will follow. We realistically started from where we needed to start from, or where we were, and accepted the responsibilities in those circumstances. For example, government, in our situation, has resources it should bring to bear on this process of development. So government plays a key part, but we understand therefore that one, government is an enabler. It creates a framework, enabling framework and environment for other things to happen, and we concentrate on that. Maybe it started at a higher level, the involvement of government started at a higher level, but with time, as the private sector grows and becomes stronger, the government withdraws from some of the... I'll give you just a quick example. Many years ago, maybe 15 years ago, in Rwanda, there was, we wanted to promote tourism and so on and so forth. But one of the things that we were lacking, say, a hotel, a good hotel that would, accommodate people and so on and so forth. And we went out and invited the private sector. We say, we need hotels. Please, will you invest in this area? And explain how it is important for the development of tourism, which is now is one of the sectors that are growing very fast and bringing in a lot of money in the country. And we weren't seeing people coming in to invest in hotels. Even investors from outside, they would come and say, no, Rwanda is too small, doesn't justify why I should put so much money here, and so on and so forth. So what we did, government actually built hotels. We did not build hotels because we wanted to do hotel business. No. We did it as a starting point, and in fact, what we did after we had built hotels, we passed them on to the private sector. We sold them to the private sector. And in fact, it was easier now. The private sector started seeing that, hotel business is good, because the hotels were there up and running. So they were interested in buying the hotels more than themselves investing in building hotels. So the government pulled out after investing and making hotels stand up. So the government got involved in business, but as a way of stimulating business, not really as its primary role, but to stimulate an activity that then the private sector would take over. So, and we had problems because people were questioning. We had the World Bank, the IMF, everybody questioning, why is the government doing this? Why? In fact, they threatened, and I remember that time, Minister of Finance then was the now president of the African Development Bank. They put so much pressure on him and say, Minister, why you do this? We thought you understood this. And he always, so when he came and told him, I said, you bring them to me next time they come putting pressure on me. So I had to tell them directly, I said, don't blame this minister of mine. I am the one giving him instructions to do this. And I don't want government to do business. That's not our intention. I want government to start a business for the private sector to take over and stop wasting time. So I literally forced it to happen. But 3 years later, they came to me and they're saying, maybe you were right. So really, here it's a question of the circumstances and the times people are, and countries find themselves in. My situation is different from China or from America or from any other country. We have to do, but the idea, the philosophy is to have the private sector lead the development of our economy long term. But the government has a role as an enabler in creating that kind of environment that will allow the private sector to move forward and flourish.
Just a quick follow-up question before I go to Ambassador Fafura. Could you, sir, very quickly just run us through the sort of investment policies you have in Rwanda in terms of foreign investment and foreigners participated in different sectors of your economy?
what we were very specific. There were a number of things, by the way, that go along with that. One, in fact, for that, even to facilitate investments to come into the country, either foreign or even to facilitate local investments, we created a board. We call it the Rwanda Development Board. And the whole idea is to have that board facilitate and create easy processes for people to make investments and make sure that people understand what to expect when they come to invest in Rwanda, or even the local people when they want to invest their money. There are certain expectations they need to be aware about. So the job of that board is to lay bare all facts and information to people so that people understand that if they put their money in this sector or that sector, this is what to expect, this is how easy it is to make the investments you want, and so on and so forth. Over and above, also creating institutions that will support and facilitate our local entrepreneurs and investors to make the process of the investment easy. That is the Rwanda Development Board. Therefore, it's like a kind of interface between government and the private sector, and make sure that we move along together. So alongside that, and again led by the Rwanda Development Board, has been the whole process of identification of what is it if somebody wants to do business in Rwanda, what obstacles do they meet, so that we actually remove all these obstacles and make sure that doing business in Rwanda is simplified. For example, registering a company that would take months. You can now register a company in Rwanda in a matter of hours, when originally it used to take months and weeks and would become very costly, and so on and so forth. So every information has been researched on and compiled to make sure that people who want to do investment know what to expect, whether it is in terms of taxes or different things that people have to pay for, or what they need in order for them to feel happy about doing business in Rwanda.
And if you want validation about that, I think Rwanda is one of the highest ranked African countries on the World Bank IFC doing business in the world.
Doing business,
That's
and
right.
then also competitiveness.
Exactly.
Yes.
We have a question from a very distinguished Nigerian, a former president of the club, and a very seasoned diplomat, Ambassador Fafura, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've been very much impressed by the speech delivered by the President of Rwanda. I am privileged to have visited Rwanda almost 40 years ago. At the time, I was acting High Commissioner in Uganda, and we were concurrently accredited to Rwanda. I loved the country, the mountains, and all that. Kigali was a very small town. In fact, I think there were not more than 1 or 2 hotels in Kigali at the time. But I knew that the country had a great potential. And the tragic events in which almost 1 million people lost their lives was a major setback for the country. But since then, President Kagame has done a tremendous job. I've watched him often on television. He's one of the most articulate and most impressive young statesmen that we have in Africa today. When I saw Kigali on the CNN, I couldn't believe it. It was like a village when I first visited it. And it's grown enormously since then with a lot of very impressive buildings. And it has one of the highest growth rates in Africa. There's no question Rwanda is doing extremely well in terms of economic growth. And I believe this is owed to the quality of leadership that President Kagame has given the country. But there are problems. The president will have to build very strong institutions to sustain the progress that has been made under his leadership. I don't get the feeling, although I have not been back in the country since then, but I don't get the feeling that these institutions that he would need to sustain the rapid growth rate that has occurred in that is taking place. Secondly, there have been, I don't mean any disrespect, but there have been criticisms from the Western press, Western governments, and generally I tend to be very skeptical of some of these criticisms. But there have also been criticisms that President Kagame needs to open up the country, liberalize the country, political freedom. I say this because I really care deeply about his leadership. He's one of the most impressive young leaders that we have in Africa today. And I believe to sustain that legacy, he must begin to open up, liberalize not only the economy, but also create political space, because that has always been the weakness of African leaders. I hope this is not really intended as a criticism, but as a friendly gesture to somebody for whom I have the highest respect. Thank you very much.
Thank you. You see, some of the issues we have to talk about here are in a sense subjective. They are open to debate. So that's why it is in order for you to raise these issues that are talked about or that exist, but depending on what interpretation you give them, depending on where you stand. That's absolutely in order, so I understand what you are saying. And I'm also conscious of the fact of what you have said. And you rightly maybe put it that you're also skeptical about some of the things said from outside. But let's expand that, at least in my view. I'll tell you my thinking. First of all, I am not sure, I have not known of any situation anywhere in this world that is perfect. Rwanda is not perfect, absolutely not. And maybe it is not even going to be. We have faced a lot of problems in the past. We face problems today. We will face them tomorrow, just like any other country, including, by the way, some of the countries that were talked about earlier on, even the developed economies, the most developed economies. They have all these problems. Even democracies that have been there for the last 200 years, they still grapple with a lot of issues with their democracies, some of which even we get surprised by, because sometimes they are similar to those of very young democracies. So you wonder why you would have a democracy for 200 years and then still have the same problems of a democracy of 10 years or something like that. So in our case, and I have heard about this so many times, I've read about it, it's like there is a saying that, or there is even a belief out there saying, oh, Rwanda is developing so fast, is doing well on this, and it's, whether it is women, participation, or investment in education, our enrollment in a primary, universal primary and secondary education goes above 94%. Healthcare, we have a healthcare system that works. Over 90% of our people have health insurance. Country, our people now feed themselves. They're able to put food on the table. We have invested in infrastructure of information and communication. We have broadband. We have wide coverage across the country. We have facilitated schools to have computers and so on and so forth. So they talk about all of this and then say, but. Now, this but is a gray area. You can say anything you want. You see, some of the things can be measured. But there are things that can't be measured that are open to anyone's views, because we will say freedom. Oh, there is no freedom. But freedom, maybe what you are saying is different from what I'm saying. And it has come to a point where some of those criticisms come more from outside than from inside. When you interact with the people of the country, what they tell you about how they feel about their own country, about the lives they live, it will be different from what somebody will write about from London or from New York or from Tokyo or from somewhere else. So we subject our definition of what the problem is to simply an individual taking a pen and writing about it and say this is the standard, and we don't give value to what the people themselves who live these lives say. In other words, and it is one of the problems for us in Africa, other people tell our story. We do not tell our own story. We need to tell our own story, and above all that, we even need to be believed. Because we are the ones, these are our lives, the issues of freedoms, of opening up, these are not issues I was telling people the other day, these are not issues you just read about in textbooks. These are lives lived by people. So if people of Rwanda tell you this is their experience, these are the lives they live, who are you to stand in Brussels and say, no, people in Rwanda are not free? You just don't it doesn't make sense. In fact, you are denying them freedom by speaking for them, assuming that they don't know how to speak for themselves. That is one way of denying my people their freedom. It's not the president of Rwanda, it's not Kagame who is denying people of Rwanda freedom. It's the other one telling stories of things he doesn't know about Rwanda. Because Rwandans should be able to speak for themselves. If a Rwandan was not able to put food on the table 5 years ago, But this Rwandan has income, is able to put food on the table, has his children going to school, is able to communicate, is able to be informed through these different kinds of infrastructure have put in place, and they go and vote as the way they want. Who are you to come and say, no, no, this thing you have chosen is not good for you? I don't agree with that. This is the basis of the argument. And as we said, and as I agreed, that Rwanda will have its own problems, as any other country will have its own problems. But why should you be interested in my problem to the point that you come and add your own problems to mine? Yes. So there are flaws in every system on this earth. So I don't agree that you would bring your own flaws and add them to my own flaws. I have to deal with my own flaws. So charity begins at home. We need to sort our house. We need to put our houses in order ourselves. Now, if you want a debate, if you want a discussion, if you want to tell me what you don't like about me or about what I'm doing in my country, that's so fine. We can have a discussion about it. But will you also tell me about your own country? Yes, who will come to ask you what goes on in your own country? So these are debates that will be there for a long time. So we tell some of these people to give us a break. Yes.
Your Excellency, we have a saying here that you cannot take Panadol for my own headache. And another takeaway, of course, as they say, is the lizard that falls down from a palm tree. If he looks around and nobody commends him, he nods his head and says, I've done well. So the final question, I'm sure you're enjoying yourselves and we can go on forever, but we have to bring this to a close. You've heard that Rwandan democracy and Rwandan freedom is freedom from hunger, freedom from illness, and freedom from ignorance.
Want, yeah.
And from want. No one else can determine what that is. So if I don't see any more hands, I think it's only proper and right. Oh, I see. Well, we can only take one more question. So the gentleman at the back there.
My name is Chris Anyebunam.
Oh, sorry, the Vice President.
Yes, yes. My question is, beautiful lecture, beautiful questions, and wonderful answers. Very erudite, very much to the point, and very African. The subject of the lecture is leadership in Africa. I keep asking myself, why is it that, for example, India and Pakistan have gone so far ahead of Africa, although we had the same experiences? I don't know what your view, sir, is on this question. Additionally, we say homegrown ideas. Recently, we had the problem of a plane load of Nigerians turned back because of some petty little problem between some documentation. If we want to have inter-Africa exchange of ideas, of business, of entrepreneurship, why is it equally also true that to get a visa by a Nigerian to a Southwest African country sometimes takes 2 months? I don't want to begin to call names of countries, but anybody who's well informed, and I know you are, sir, would know which countries I'm talking about. How can we begin to talk about homegrown ideas when there's no basis, when there's no infrastructure for us to go in, come out as freely as they do in the West? And secondly, how can that relate to the fact that India and Pakistan, I keep looking at them, India has never had any coup. In Nigeria, for example, we've had coups so many years. What is it that they do right that we have done wrong in Africa? Thank you, sir.
Yeah, it's a simple question to understand. It's a very hard question to answer. Because as well as you do, all of us, I think in this room and outside this room, understand really the need to address the issues you've addressed or you've raised. But as I said earlier on, when it comes to the real practice and dealing with issues, something else happens. I don't know. I don't understand. But short of a satisfactory answer from me to you, I'll tell you one thing, that I'm probably as frustrated as you are, but what we try to do, if we can't get the whole of Africa doing the right thing, we try to do the right thing in Rwanda, and I'm particularly referring to this question you've raised. I'll give you an example. In fact, Nigerians get visas very easily to travel to Rwanda. And in fact, they can get visas at the airport, some of them. So I didn't have to follow what those others are doing. I don't know the reasons they would be doing that. But not only that, in Rwanda, we have reformed our immigration policy to the point that, for example, the East African community I was talking about earlier, while countries within this community and people within these countries find problems in going to different countries of this community, within the community, to find jobs or to find work permits to do different things, in Rwanda, citizens of these other countries don't find a problem in Rwanda. We have liberalized that. They come and we even removed the charges on work permits and so on and so forth. So we have allowed freedom of movement of people to Rwanda and anywhere else better than other countries in the region are doing. So for us, we are doing it. Now, we can ask the others, say, why not doing it? They will not give you an answer, but they will not do it. Even if they will agree with you that it needs to be done. So that's why it is difficult. I cannot answer for somebody else. But when it comes to Rwanda, we have tried to deal with those issues. Yes. In the East Africa, that's Uganda, Kenya, Tanzania, Burundi, and ourselves. People of these other four countries come and work and stay in Rwanda easily and easier than Rwandans find the process of going to these other countries. But we have maintained saying, well, you are welcome. In fact, in some of our discussions, we even discovered that students from these countries come to Rwanda and study and pay tuition at the level the Rwandan citizens do. But when our students go to study in these countries, they have to pay as foreigners, which is about 5 times what their citizens do. You see what I mean? So I understand what you are saying, but there is very little I can do about it other than practicing it ourselves at home in Rwanda. What others do, and I think they understand what they need to do, they don't do it. So there is a limitation as to how much influence we can have, at least on the pace of the process.
Well, one thing is clear, in Paul Kagame's Rwanda, they walk the talk. Or perhaps I should say they fly the talk, because some of you, and I don't know if you correct me if I'm wrong, Excellency, I understand that Air Rwanda wants to increase its frequencies from 3 a week to 5 a week.
5 times
Rwanda
a week.
flies into Lagos 5 times, or wants to fly into Lagos 5 times a week. And I'm wondering when Air something something, Eagle or Nigeria will start flying back to...
And after that, it will be daily.
True, excellent, excellent. Well, ladies and gentlemen, you've had the privilege, I certainly have, of listening to a man who's passionate about his country, a visionary leader, a man who's getting things done, and someone who doesn't care what anybody else thinks about him as long as his people are fed and they're healthy and they're happy. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for Mr. Paul.
Thank you.
President.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, His Excellency Mr. Paul Kagame, President of the Republic of Rwanda.